both in Arizona and in Georgia, Biden, if he is going to maintain his position and maintain the position of the Democrats, is going to have to meet the needs of those populations, the youth and the black populations, particularly black women, and the conditions of labor and the conditions of living and the conditions of public service and all of that with which they're faced. In other words, if Biden wants to do anything, he's going to have to come up with a politics which is much more progressive than that to which he has historically been attached. But here's something interesting, because within the Democratic Party, there is a tradition, an interesting tradition, which is much more radical and much more, quote, socialist, if you want to call it that. And yet it was mainstream. And I thought it would be very interesting to just give you an example of what that tradition is about. In 1944, Roosevelt gave a State of the Union address at the end of with the Second World War on, and this was shortly before Roosevelt died. The war was not yet over, but it was getting close to it. And what Roosevelt said in this was as follows. This is not an anti-capitalist document, and this will also, I think, help explain my response to an answer, to a question which I'm always being asked, which is, how come you can sometimes vote for a conventional Democrat? Why aren't you always taking a radical position? And this will, I think, help solve some of that kind of problem. So Roosevelt, in his State of the Union address, said this: "The Republic had its beginning and grew to its present strength under the protection of certain inalienable political rights." Now, this idea of inalienable political rights is very strong, and actually Trump and the Trump supporters are very prone to that kind of rhetoric and that kind of thing. They think it's their inalienable right not to wear a mask and all the rest of it. And so Roosevelt says, among these inalienable rights are the rights of free speech, free press, free worship, trial by jury, freedom from unreasonable searches and seizures. And these are our rights to life and liberty. But he then talks about how, as our nation has grown, so things have become rather more complicated. And therefore, we have to have a clear realization that individual freedom cannot exist without economic security and independence. And he then has a very interesting phrase: necessitous men are not free men. Now, I like that phrase. Necessitous men are free men. People who are hungry and out of a job are the stuff of which dictatorships are made. Necessitous men are not free men. I parallel that with one of Marx's kind of comments, when he talks in Volume 3 of Capital about the way in which the realm of freedom, he says, begins when the realm of necessity is left behind. So Marx is in favor, and I've mentioned this in former podcasts, is a great champion of individual liberty and individual freedom. But it's individual liberty and individual freedom which is based upon a world in which the realm of necessity has been left behind. And the big question is, why is it that the realm of necessity has not been left behind? And why is it that the realm of necessity, which Roosevelt saw was critical to deal with in 1944, is still critical for the mass of the US population? And if it has not been dealt with, then freedom doesn't mean anything. If it has not been dealt with, then the country is always going to be in a situation in which dictatorships can be made.